Everybody in school has rules. Don't leave the hostel after lights out. Don't whistle at night. And if you ever hear a baby crying behind the girls' hostel, don't answer. Because at St. Agnes Government Secondary School, there was no baby, only the baby bush. When Ngozi resumed at St. Agnes, the senior warned every new student about one thing. If you hear a baby crying after midnight, cover your ears. Whatever you do, don't go looking for it. Ngozi laughed. A baby? In the middle of a forest. No one else laughed. It's not a baby. A senior whispered. It's the baby bush. Every Saturday night, just after midnight, a cry drifted from the thick bush behind the girls' hostel, soft at first, then rising exactly like a newborn. Teachers called it an animal, but the matron locked the hostel doors before 11 every night, without exception. On Ngozi's first Saturday, she heard it herself, 12:17 a.m. Wah! 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 So real, she sat upright in bed. The girl beneath her whispered, "Don't move. It wants someone to come outside." Then the crying stopped. A gentle knock landed on the window. Tap, 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 tap. A tiny shadow climbed onto the sill. Two glowing yellow eyes stared in. "Please," it whispered. "I'm lost. I'm lost." Then it said her name. "Ngozi, can you help me?" Ngozi's heart nearly stopped. No stranger should know her name. The creature kept whispering, "Cold, hungry, please, let me in," until her bunkmate Esther grabbed her ankle just as her feet touched the floor. "Don't answer, it's lying. That's the baby bush." Ngozi looked back at the window. The creature was smiling now, far too wide for anything that small. No baby could smile like that. The matron's lantern swept the corridor. The shadow vanished, the crying cut off it mid-breath. She counted heads twice. 36. 36. Before allowing herself to exhale. "If anyone hears crying tonight," she said at the door, "pray, don't answer." And what next? Sleep. By breakfast, a Form 1 girl named Pat was missing. Bed made, shoes beside it, no scream, no trace. Police searched the bush by afternoon and found nothing, as though the earth had simply closed over her. That evening, behind the library, Esther finally explained, "This happens every rainy season. The crying starts, then someone disappears. It never cries for everyone. It chooses one student, and once it learns your name, it keeps calling until you answer." A cold wind swept the compound. From the forest came the cry again. Wah! 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 Loud enough now that the whole field heard it. A small, barefoot figure stepped out of the trees, muddy, smiling. It was Ruth. Her eyes glowed, the same yellow as the... In a voice that wasn't heard, she said, "It wants another friend." The principal called Ruth towards her. Ruth tilted her head, unnatural, wrong, and answered in a deep voice, "I'm not Ruth." Screaming broke out. Students were marched through back to the hostels. That night, the chaplain prayed through the compound. Matrons nailed small crosses above every door, and buckets of water saturated inside each room. Nobody wanted to step outside after the night again. At midnight, the crying returned, closer than ever, followed by a knock at the hostel door itself. "Matron, it's Ruth. I escaped. Please open the door." Young girls began to cry along with it. The matron's hand had nearly reached the handle when an old cleaner, Mama Bola, burst in. "Don't open it! Don't dare it! Don't try it! Don't open that door!" She called through the door instead. "If you are truly Ruth, tell us your mother's name. Tell us your father's name. Do you have siblings?" Silence. Then a laugh, low and wrong. coming from every direction of the compound at once. The windows rattled, and the trees, dozens of small golden eyes opened in the dark, all turned towards the hostel. Not one bush baby, dozens. The eyes watched until sunrise, then vanished one by one with the light. The principal cancelled all evening activities and banned everyone from the forest after dark, offering no explanation. Of course, none needed. That afternoon, Ngozi and Esther slipped into the school clinic where Ruth sat staring at the wall, leaves in her hair, mud still on her feet. For one brief moment, her eyes cleared, and in her own voice, she whispered, "Don't let it find the tree." Before she could explain, her eyes turned gold again, her smiles twisted, and she collapsed. That evening, Mama Bisi locked the two girls inside the gardener's shed and opened an old wooden box. A faded photograph showed students beside a massive iroko tree, and high in its branches, circled in red ink, dozens of tiny glowing eyes. "That is where the bush baby lives," and she said, "and every 10 years, they choose one student to become their voice." Outside, the wind howled, and from deep in the forest came a far cry larger than before. Not one baby, hundreds. Mabisi explained that her own grandmother had told her long before the school existed, villagers never entered that forest after dark because something inside the great iroko tree called to people, sometimes a mother's voice, sometimes a father's, sometimes a lost child's voice. That Saturday, the sky darkened early. By midnight, the crying wasn't coming from the forest anymore. It was coming from the roof. Thump, 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 scratch, scratch, scratch. Dust sifted down from the ceiling above Ngozi's bunk. Then silence, and a voice gentle, almost kind. "Ngozi, I found you." A crack split the wood overhead. A long hand covered in dark fur pushed through. Then another. The generator failed. In the dark, by matchlight, the matron spotted a small creature crouched by the window, dust high, fur covered, ears enormous, eyes glowing cold, its face uncertainly close to human. It stared straight at Ngozi, lifted one finger, and pointed towards the forest. The match went out. When light returned, it was gone. By morning, workers found no footprints on the roof, only broken tiles, and beneath them, a bundle of dried leaves wrapped around a rusted brass bell. Mama Bisi went pale. The forest bell, it was never meant to be removed. It kept the crying inside the forest. Moments later, the gardener came running, breathless. "Turn. The iroko tree," he gasped. "It is gone. Just a hole." Fresh muddy footprints led away from the hole, not towards the bush, towards the hostel. The disappearance of the ancient tree spread through the school by morning. No stump, no splinters, just a vast circular hole, as if the earth had swallowed it whole. In the school archive, Mabisi found an old leather notebook belonging to the first principal, a hand-drawn map showing a hostel that no longer existed, labeled Old Hostel, condemned after the incident of 1978. An entire dormitory woke up empty one morning. Mabisi said quietly, 40 birds, not one girl was found. "Where did they go?" Esther asked. The school bell rang on its own then, once, twice, 3 times, from the direction of that hostel they demolished for half a century. A little girl in a faded uniform stood where it was once, motionless. She pointed in the dark and began to cry. Then she was gone. An old 1978 newspaper dug out of the archives the next day told the rest a fire had destroyed the original girls' hostel just after midnight. Officials claimed every student escaped, but the register listed 40 names that only 39 were ever accounted for. The missing girl was Amaro Keke, 13 years old. Mama Bisi remembered her. She heard crying from the forest one Saturday night, went to look. She came back, but she was never truly herself again. She kept saying the baby isn't crying because it's lost, it's crying because it's lonely. Weeks later, the hostel burned. That night, floodlights covered every corner of the compound. At midnight, the crying came from every direction at once, and the lights died one by one. Then came singing an old school anthem, faint at first, then carried by hundreds of voices through the window. Ngozi watched lines of girls in faded uniforms walking silently towards the forest, led by a girl holding a small lantern. Amara, she turned, pressed a finger to her lip, then whispered, "Don't let it hear you." Every voice stopped at once, because from deep in the forest, something far larger than any baby bush answered with a single deafening cry. The little bush baby reappeared on the water tank behind the hostel, sadness in its glowing eyes. "You can talk," Ngozi answered. "We all can," it said. "And the crying isn't ours. It belongs to the one beneath the hill, the one that has slept for years. We cried to warn people away from it, not to lure them." The bush babies had never been the threat, they were warning. "Our family lived in the Iroko tree," it said. "We watched over the school, kept children from reaching the hill, but the tree is gone. We can't hold it back any longer." A crack split the earth where the tree once stood. Cold wind rushed across the compound. "It has woken," the creature said. Every bush baby in the forest fled, not towards the school, but away from it, as though running from something far worse than themselves. From beyond the trees came slow, heavy breathing. Whatever slept beneath the hill was climbing out. The principal, the chaplain, Amabisi, met them at the forest edge without a hint of surprise. They have known about the bush babies for generations, simply never been believed. The creature led them to the hole where the tree had stood, as its basement sat on the ancient stone doorway, carved with 4 words: "Do not answer the cry." Behind it, the breathing. "My ancestors guarded this hill for hundreds of years," the bush baby said. "As long as the tree stood, the thing below could never rise. People cut the roots, they took the bell, the seal weakened." A boom shook the doorway, then another. A crack split it top to bottom. "Ancestors guarded the seal for hundreds of years," the bush baby said. "As long as the tree stood, the thing below could never rise. People cut the roots, they took the bell, the seal weakened." A boom shook the doorway, then another. A crack split it open to bottom. "It's too late," the creature whispered. The door burst open. Ice hair rushed out, killing every lantern flame at once. From the dark came a voice, ancient, slow, calm. "Who answered my cry?" No one moved. No one dared. The silence stood nearly a full minute, until a young security guard named Daniel stepped forward, terrified. "It was me. I answered it last week. I thought it was a lost child." The grandchildren, the voice laughed. "So I have found you." Black mist poured from the doorway and wound around Daniel's feet, holding him in place as he fought to run. The bush babies shuddered from the trees, dozens, then hundreds, circling Daniel, every blazing gold. The mist hissed and recoiled, retreating towards the door. "We can hold it," the creature beside Ngozi said, exhausted, "but not forever." Mambisi gasped. "The bell, it was never meant to trap them. It was meant to call them." The chaplain rang it once, clear, beautiful. Bush babies poured from every tree in answer. Hundreds of golden eyes circled the broken doorway, voices rising together into a deep, rolling song. Not a cry, but something far older and stronger. The ancient voice roared, "No, you cannot bind me again." Stone door ground shut, inch by inch, against the fighting mist, until a final furious whisper split through the closing seam. "I will wait." Then silence. The crack sealed. Vines crept over the stone by sunrise, as though it was never once opened. The oldest bush baby turned to Ngozi, the forest is safe again. It will stay that way as long as no one follows the crying.